Hi friends, it's Angela here for ellenhudson.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today to check out this video. Today I'm going to be making a card project that features the Honeycomb Background Builder die set, which was part of the Essentials by Ellen June release. This is a two-piece die set that has so many possibilities, which we're going to talk about when we get into it. Originally, I'd planned to work with Catherine Pooler inks in Tiara, Wintergreen, Sea Glass, and Bay Breeze. I ended up only using one of those colors, but as you can see in the final photos, I did still stick to the same color palette with cardstock and the foil that I chose. So here you're seeing me just ink blend a background piece that isn't even. I wanted some parts to be darker than others because this is just going to go underneath my honeycomb layer. Moving on, these are what the honeycomb dies look like. If you look closely, you can see that the one in my left hand is going to cut an edge, as well as the little hexagons inside, whereas the one on the right is only going to cut those small hexagons with a more of a knockout type effect when I run it through the die cutting machine. So I'm just lining up the dies here on my magnetic cutting mat before I put them through my die cutting machine. And you can see eventually when I take them out that we're going to have the complete die cut on the bottom left corner and the knockout on the top right. And you can see that there, and I've got a whole bunch of extra little bits left over. So I'm adhering the die cut piece on top of my ink blended layer now. And then I'm using the little outline that the bottom left die cut, and I'm going to use that as a guide for where my little hexagons are going to go. So that's just being held there by my fingers while I put little dabs of glue into each of the little holes there. And then I'm going to come in with those leftover die cut hexagons and pop them in until I've completely filled out that space. Now, once I've finished filling in all of those little gaps, I'm just going to let the adhesive dry there. Again, that the outline isn't adhered, it's just there as an alignment guide. I'm just going to let the adhesive set there, and then I'm going to move on to the next part. And if you're doing this and you have pieces that are sort of hanging over the edge, like I do there, you can trim them off later, not to worry. Now I'm going to make some gold hexagons with some gold cardstock, and I use the Essentials by Ellen press plate here to make that sheet and some matte gold foil. And I'm going to take one of the dies from the Background Builder die set and create a whole bunch of little hexagons to add to my design. You can see that I'm popping those little bits out of the die there, and then I'm going to use, just like I did the first time, the outline from the hexagons as an alignment guide to make sure that everything is just exactly as I want it, evenly spaced and all of that. But before I do, I'm going to remove the little alignment guide that I made for my my green hexagons and carefully pull it off. As you can see there, perfect spacing. That just makes my heart sing. And now I'm doing the same process again by taking my glue and using that gold alignment guide as I pop in each of the gold hexagons to fill that space. Now you'll notice as I fill these in that I'm not being patient and waiting for that adhesive to dry. I'm just being very careful when I pull the piece off that I'm not pulling out any of the hexagons with it. Now, I'm using the gold piece as my alignment guide here, but another great thing about the Background Builder set is that you can use those pieces as stencils too. So if you wanted to, you could temporarily adhere that piece to your card, stencil over it, and then remove it. There are just so many possibilities with this little die set. I love it. You can see here that I have a little bit of overhang on the card. Totally not a big deal, like I said before. I'm just going in here with some nice sharp scissors and trimming off the edges, and there you see a lovely geometric print background panel. So we are ready to move on to the sentiment, and I'm using these super cute birthday unboxing glimmer foil plates from Spellbinders. These are available in the Ellen Hudson shop. I die cut one of them just so you could see what it looks like when I reverse foiled, but what I'm going to use today is the foiled version just on a piece of white cardstock. a little happy birthday and time to celebrate. Now, I wanted to create a frame around the sentiment, but I didn't have a rectangle die that was quite long and skinny enough. So I decided to improvise a little with one of the Essentials rectangles from the Essentials by Ellen line. I had some of that matte gold cardstock left over that I showed you earlier, and I just cut a small rectangle from it. I saved the inside piece because I figure I'll use that on another project, but it's just the border part that I'm interested in for this card. And you can see that it's too small for the widest part of my sentiment for sure. So I just took my scissors and snipped off the sides, which allowed me to tuck the pieces closer to the top and bottom of my foiled words. And that way it sort of looks like the happy birthday script is just sort of like naturally breaking the edges of the frame. So I got that all adhered in there with my border in place. And I still kind of felt like this panel that has my sentiment on it, I still kind of felt like it was going to be too big for my card. I was covering up more of the hexagons than I wanted it to. So just to trim it down a little bit and to make sure that it was perfectly centered, I took another one of the Essentials by Ellen rectangle dies, and I just placed it right over top, basically the smallest one I could get and still fit everything in the rectangle this time. Ran that through my die cutting machine, and then used that on the front of the card. And I know now that I have a perfectly centered sentiment that I can mount on my background panel there, just with a little bit of liquid adhesive. And then I used, for some extra dimension, some foam tape to pop the hexagon panel up on my A2 card base. And there you go, a really cute, simple geometric pattern project that could work for anyone's birthday, male or female, and with any color palette that you feel drawn to. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you're feeling inspired to create some of your own geometric cards, either with the Honeycomb Background Builder or with any of the other basic shapes in your stash. You'll find all the products I used today in the description box below, and be sure to click the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you back here soon.